Dodgy advice and bad decisions can cost you big in real estate. We're here to make sure that that doesn't happen. Welcome to the No BS Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and it's time to take control of your property journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to the No BS Real Estate Podcast, your go-to guide for navigating the Australian property and financial market. I'm your host, Jo Agresta, and today we have a special guest who's pioneering innovative housing solutions all the way in WA, Western Australia. Joining us is Neil Gibb, the founder and managing director of the HMO Property Co. Neil is a tenacious and compassionate property developer who, he identified a significant gap in the state's housing market. And through his vision, these are just a few key notes. Over 1,000 individuals have found affordable and stylish accommodation. More than 150 investors have achieved an average of 15% return on investment, with approximately $20,000 in positive annual cash flow. And in this episode, I'm so excited he's here. We'll delve into Neil's journey, the inception of HMO Property Co., and explore the co-living model that's transforming property investment. Thank you so much for being here, Neil.
Sure, thank you very much for having me in that wonderful introduction. Thank you so much.
I had to give you the kudos. Those are some huge numbers. Like, you can't not talk about it. I could not mention it for our guests to, our listeners to tune into and know exactly who we're talking to today.
It's always strange when you hear somebody introducing you on a podcast or in any setting and they talk about the things you've achieved, because as an entrepreneur, you kind of just go forward and forward and forward and forget about what you've achieved, right? So it's always nice to hear them things back. So thank you.
Of course. No, it's so true though. Yeah, as an entrepreneur, you do just kind of keep going and go, oh yeah, I forgot I did that. Oh yeah, we did do that. So no, good on you. And, on top of that, for those tuning in, we'll also be delving into, I'll give you a background of today's episode. So we're going to also discuss the current economic climate, the impact of the recent RBA rate cuts, and what 2025 might hold for property investors as well as touching on Neil's own podcast, the HMO Property Show, and what listeners can gain from tuning in. So this episode is for anyone, whether you are an investor seeking cash flow positive opportunities or someone just interested in sustainable co-living solutions. This episode is packed with valuable insights. So let's dive in. My first question, Neil, is can you share your professional background and what led you to establish the HMO Property Co?
Yeah, absolutely. My professional background is actually quite short-lived. I only started investing in real estate in 2014. And as you can probably tell by my accent, I'm not from Australia. I was born in the UK in a small town called Middlesbrough in the northeast of England. And as an electrician, I used to be the man that people used to contact to renovate their houses for them, like install downlights, rewire the house, kitchens, bathrooms, etc. And never knew how to commercialize it, but knew how to add value. But didn't actually know that I was adding value at the time. So when I turned up to Australia and the power of Facebook, I started getting things on my Facebook feed about how to invest in real estate. And I went along to a seminar and I was kind of hooked from day one, because the person that stood on stage told you what the numbers to look for when buying a property. So stamp duty, the right price to purchase at, the right price to sell at, holding costs, selling costs, etc. All the numbers that you need to understand as an investor. And with that new bit of knowledge and my experience in being a tradesman, I found it relatively straightforward to go from there out to then start buying properties and renovating and flipping them. But the flipping part was the time-consuming part. So we started looking at things where we could create cash flow from real estate. And in Australia, we typically have 4 or 5% gross yields, which means a lot of the investment options are negative cash flow. So we started looking at ways that we could produce cash flow from real estate, and the HMO was the model, which there was people on the East Coast doing rooming houses and new generation boarding houses and stuff. But we didn't have a policy in Western Australia, so we looked at the HMO name. There was a guy on the East Coast already using it, and he was saying that he brought it over from the UK, but being from the UK and knowing what a HMO was, we just started calling it the HMO as well, which stands for the House of Multiple Occupancy. And we took the risk on our principal place of residence in Perth. At the time in 2015, the vacancy rate in Perth was like over 7%, so there's vacant properties everywhere.
Wow.
And we converted our property into a HMO, and we moved in with the in-laws to kind of cover the risk because we didn't know whether it was going to work or not, right? So we're like, well, we'll move in with my wife's mother, which, you want to live a few years like most people won't, so you can live the rest of your life like most people can't. So that for me was uncomfortable at the time, but it was a really good outcome because we rented the rooms out within 3 weeks. We rented the house out for close to $900 a week. And there was vacant properties in that same street renting out, or vacant and like at low fours, like 400 to 425 a week. And they were vacant for 3 or 4 months.
Huge.
So because we'd we provided affordable accommodation to the market and had multiple streams of income from the same property, we then ended up with a property that was generating $15,000 a year positive cash flow just from the one house.
That's unbelievable. I love that story because you've come from a different background, like electrician, right? So you've gone from being a tradie, being hands-on on the tools, flipping houses, to, okay, well, I'm in Australia now. Like, you've done it in a different country on top of all things. Then you've started your business. Like, that's a really impressive story, and, well done with the grind, because that sounds like an incredible amount of sacrifice to test it out, especially, like you said, you took the risk on your principal place of residence. A lot of people would not probably want to risk it to test it out, but you did, and you're now seeing the other side and the benefits of it. So it kind of leads into what you do with HMO, of course, because you tested it out yourself. So you've actually been there, done that, tried it. You've seen success. That's huge.
Yeah, it is. And you said there, coming to a different country. I think that actually benefited me a little bit, coming to a different country, because you kind of break free. And not that people were holding me back, but all of a sudden you kind of you need to find a new crowd to be around. And when I started going to seminars, they were the type of people that I wanted to hang around. So I started spending time with other property investors and property developers and just people in the real estate space. And all of a sudden you start talking and acting like them and stuff. And I think that actually helped me to become where I am today and the person that I am today.
That's amazing. Like I said, kudos to you. And I think when I look at co-living, because this is such I think not a new thing, like you said, it's been around, 2014 plus, like even longer, but I think more recently with the rental crisis that's happened over the last, 2-year period, especially in Australia, in particular, Victoria and Sydney. But you're kind of benefiting these, affordable rentals out to people with co-living spaces. Like, can you paint the picture just for our listeners who are trying to picture what co-living looks like? What is like the co-living model itself, and how does it fit in?
Co-living's the kind of new sexier term that's come out nowadays. Like I say, we call it HMO, or shared housing, in the West. On the East Coast, you've got rooming houses and new generation boarding houses and boarding houses. And I think co-living kind of gives it a new kind of funkier edge, which if you look in the United States and the UK and Europe specifically, where we've got a lot more density, a lot more people living there, this style of living's been around for many, many years, and only now becoming really popular because we've got a housing shortage and affordability crisis, people sleeping in their cars, people sleeping in tents. And people are now starting to look at this, because it solves the problem, but also it gives investors positive cash flow, which is what a lot of people are looking for in these high interest rate times.
Yeah, that's so true. And you paint a good picture because, like you said, the co-living, especially with the climate at the moment, with people living in cars or living in tents, it's really sad. So, it's a really cool model. I really enjoy co-living. That's why I was excited to have you. And I know there's a lot of our listeners who have requested an episode about co-living. So this is just going to tie in for all you guys who asked for it. Here it is. And, on top of that, on the back of your experiences, I know you mentioned a few personal experiences you had, but are there any observations or that, what kind of led you to bring the need for affordable co-living spaces into Western Australia specifically? Was there a defining moment, or just the fact that you kind of got into it by attending these seminars and talking to the right people?
It's interesting that you ask, actually. Sometimes I think to myself, I know this word might have been used a few times, but the accidental entrepreneur. Kind of like, I started doing this to replace my own income. So because I was really sick of working in the oil and gas industry as an electrician, spent a lot of time trying to get into this beautiful country. Then I spent a lot of my time in remote areas, in red hot conditions, humid, And I wanted to spend more time down here. So my first point of call was replace my income so that I had enough time or enough income so that I didn't have to work, and then I could spend more time at home with my wife. So I did the first property. That worked well. We then rented and started rent vesting. We still rent vest to this day.
Nice.
We did our second property. We did our third property, and then we did our fourth property. And as we were doing that fourth property, I was still working in the oil and gas industry. My wife was a project director for a marketing agency. So we had really good incomes, and the portfolio wasn't generating enough money for us to kind of step away from their incomes. So again, we reached out to the mother-in-law who we lived with for a certain period of time. And we said, Paula, we're thinking about setting up this property management business to manage our own portfolio properties. And we think that once we set it up, other people could start asking us to help them. And, this could be quite big. Fast forward today, like you said, we've housed close to 2,000 people now. So I didn't realize it was going to be so big. But if it wasn't for Paula stepping in and running that property management business for us in the early days, then we wouldn't have established our property management business. And once we had that established with the power of social media, once again, people started coming to us saying, I've got this vacant property. Can you help us convert it? And the first one that we did was a property in Victoria Park, which is about 3.5, 4 k's from the CBD. This property had been on the market for nearly 7 months. Started off at $600 a week, couldn't lease it. $500, couldn't lease it. $450, couldn't lease it. And the property agent was saying that he should drop it down to $425. And he reached out to me and he said, Neil, if we convert this property, what would it rent out for? And we done some quick numbers on it, and we got him just over $1,000 a week. I think it was $1,025. We converted the property in 3 weeks. It was when I was off work. I quit my job at this stage. I was off work. Converted the property in 3 weeks, and we rented it out for $1,025 a week. So it took it from a vacant property that couldn't lease out to providing affordable accommodation to help people get access to clean, safe, affordable accommodation and give the investor a much higher yield.
That's unbelievable. Like, well done. Like, what a period of time. 7 month on the market is huge, right? And that's usually where on realestate.com, you're not going to see it. If you're looking at rentals, it's very hard for the filter to keep popping up that property. And, I like your approach to just saying, hey, let's just do this and see what happens. And bang, it's right there. And I guess that's kind of like your proof of concept, that kind of sale.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, fair play to the investors for taking a punt as well, because it was new to them. In fact, the guy that owned that property was English, and he knew what the HMO was. Luckily, we called the company the HMO Property Co, which is what made him reach out. So a little bit of luck there. However, he knew the model and he knew it well, and he knew it would work in Australia. So he said, convert it. I know it'll work, and let's go. And these people that took the punt on us in the early days have really helped us establish the business and have the impact that we've had in the market so far.
No, that's amazing. And, leads into this next question here. It's, for those that are unfamiliar, can you explain, I guess, your mission? Like, you've told us about, some of the experiences, how you got here, but what's the goal? You've achieved so much in your time, and it's so impressive. What's the mission of HMO Property Co and the services that you offer?
Well, the mission came about as the portfolio of my portfolio continued to grow, and as the portfolio of the business started to grow. And we started getting more and more people asking us to help them. We obviously had to hire people. And I read a book called Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. And Vern talks about having a big, hairy, audacious goal, a goal that's so big that it scares you and you don't know if you're going to achieve it, but it drives you enough or excites you enough to get out of bed every day and keep going. So we set a goal to do 1,000 rooms, but then we did like 250 in 1 year. So we were like, is 1,000 rooms big enough? So we revisited the goal and said we want to do 10,000 rooms in 10 years. So we've got a goal to deliver 10,000 rooms to the market by 2031. We're behind target currently, but we believe in the kind of hockey stick growth that you see where you kind of, you just get that plateau kick. And I think we're kind of getting to that point now with the team that we've got, the systems that we've got, the marketing that we do, the interest that we get, the people reaching out to us and asking us for help. It's increasing every single day. So I think we'll get there, but it'll be a big push.
Oh, definitely. But like, good on you. I really love we follow a similar model. It's what is the scariest goal you can pick, and let's be really ambitious, and we'll get it done. We'll just find a way. So that's awesome. And I think you will get it done because, like, judging by your previous history and where your business is currently at, even though you said you haven't met it just yet, but we've got a whole year ahead of us. A little bit over under half a year for the financial year if you're going by that. But I think the sky's the limit. This is the time where people are looking for this co-living. They've just started kind of, especially this new generation, they've started pointing onto this term and going, oh, well, hang on, I've heard someone else do this. I've heard of co-living. Now I want in on it. What do you have to do for it? So, like, one of the things I wanted to unpack, especially for, our listeners, is how does your approach differ from traditional property investment models? Because there are so many, you can do negative gearing, you can do positive gearing, like all these things that are coming in. And that's how a lot of Australian investors started. They did negatively geared their properties, and then that was the way you invested. Now, this is totally different concept, and it's positive gearing, and I think it's coming up. So, yeah, I just wanted to understand or help our listeners understand, how do you differ?
It definitely creates challenges having an asset that's cash flow positive, because I think in Australia, for such a long time now, we've been conditioned to think that paying tax is a bad thing and we should be negatively geared to save tax. But I've done the numbers on it, and if you're $10,000 a year cash flow positive versus $10,000 a year cash flow negative, you actually come out ahead, even if you earn more money and pay more tax on that money.
There you go. So, that's just proof in the numbers. Math doesn't lie.
Yeah. No, I mean, if anyone wants to see it, I've done a video on my YouTube channel just talking about like 10K pos and neg. It just comes out in a much better position, which means you can accelerate your journey faster.
That's so interesting. I will put a link to that in this episode. For everyone that's wondering how does that work, I'll definitely share that episode in here.
Yeah, cool. And the traditional method has always been, invest in negatively geared assets and focus on capital growth. And whether they've wanted to invest in negatively geared assets or not, with a 4, 5, or 6% net yield, gross yield, typically they're going to be cash flow negative. Where with ours, we get capital growth and cash flow on the same deal. And these HMOs that we do, they're in the same street as normal investment property. So if you sat our house next to a normal 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom house, 20 k's from the CBD, for instance, and that property would rent out for $500-$600 a week, and ours would rent out for $1,700 to $2,000 a week, depending on the room rates. What the model that we've created in our financial freedom blueprint is you can sit that asset at principal and interest and use the additional free cash flow or net cash flow from what the property generates to pay down the principal faster, so that one property is debt-free within 10 to 12 years. And debt-free generates over $100,000 a year net cash flow just from one asset.
That's unbelievable. That's really interesting. I think a lot of people listening are now definitely listening if they weren't before. And it's interesting, like, going into, I guess, the benefits of this model. You kind of mentioned, this positive, negative cash flow, right? They're two stark differences. But if you had to look at it from a tenant and investor perspective, what are the benefits that it offers both of those parties? Like, what do tenants get out of it and what do investors get out of it? I think you touched on investors, but yeah.
Yeah. Well, the investors, they get a positive cash flow asset, so that if they, for any reason, lose the job, fall ill, can't work, like, negative gearing only works if you work. You can only access that tax deduction if you've got an income, right? Because it offsets the income so that you pay less tax. But if you want to build a property portfolio so you can quit your job and live life on your terms, then you're not going to be able to do that with a negatively geared portfolio unless you're just constantly pulling the capital growth out there in chunks and refinancing. And at some stage, you're going to tap out, right? Positive cash flow comes in monthly, takes care of them monthly bills that you keep getting, which is always a good thing, right?
That's the best.
It is. So the model versus like aiming for capital growth or just getting the cash flow, if you have enough of these properties or you just want to buy one, like if we ended up with 6 that were generating $110,000 a year of net cash flow after all expenses. But then if you just buy one and just leave it at principal and interest and pay down the debt, within 10 to 12 years, you're going to be debt free generating that anyway. And that'd be nice. That means you can quit your job. You've got an extra 40, 50 hours a week that you can then spend on passion projects, helping people, giving your time to other people, whatever you want to do. It just gives you time. It gives you choices.
Yeah, and options. I think that's so important. And also, like, now going to the tenant side, it sounds like from a tenant's perspective, it's more affordable. The rental side, what benefits does it have for your tenants?
The three biggest benefits we see is affordability, first and foremost. The biggest recurring expense for anybody is the living expenses. So if we can provide something that's affordable, and affordable is defined by any government across the world is spending 30% of your gross income, less than 30% of your gross income on housing, then that is seen as affordable. And Anglicare Australia did a snapshot of the market in 2023, took a snapshot of the market to see what was affordable under the definition for what they call the essential workers cohort. So these are people like construction workers, ambulance drivers, care workers, like pillars of community that keep Australia ticking. And there was only 6 properties in Western Australia that night that were classed as affordable for these people. So now these are the target audience for the HMO because we can give them affordability. The second piece is convenience, which again, it's convenient because it's in an area that people want to live because maybe they've got family there or they work there or they've got some sort of reason to need to be in that suburb. So it's affordable and convenient. And then lastly, we've got community. So right now, there's reports out there saying that everybody in the world feels more lonely and disconnected than ever before. And they're saying that we're going through a loneliness and social isolation epidemic. So this style of housing gives people the option to stay in their rooms and be private because they've got a locked room. And inside that room, they've got a kitchenette, they've got an ensuite, they've got a TV, they've got a bed. It's kind of like a micro apartment. So they've got everything in that room to keep themselves private if they want. But we are social creatures and we love to socialize with each other. So they've also got the option. We always keep the kitchen, dining and living area in these houses. Nice. So if they want to come out as a community and cook on a weekend and have a glass of wine, have a beer, have a catch up, play games, they've got that common area so they can still get out there and socialize and connect with each other. And we think them 3 reasons, affordability, convenience and community, are the 3 big reasons why this is so popular.
Yeah, that's it's so true because I think, you said an interesting statement there. You said we're going through an epidemic of, this social isolation or isolation. Oh my God. Yeah, here we go. I'll just make up words on the fly too. Isolation. Anyway. But no, you're so right. It's like we're so isolated in so many ways. I think COVID had a lot to do with that, being in isolation and then struggling to come out of our shells. And this is a really cool way, especially for, like, I'm picturing even a young person, like whether you're a single or, you're even just a young couple, you're either new to the country or new to a location. This might be a really great way to just integrate into that community and find your footing. Make a connection with people, and you're doing it in an affordable way. And like you said, essential workers also benefit hugely in that way too, especially because they're not at their home that much. Like if they're always doing emergency work, it's inconvenient timing. So
they work 10, 12-hour shifts. They come home, all they want to do is grab some food and go to bed and then start the next day and do it all again. So yeah, if they have to travel an hour to get home and an hour to get back to work, then all of a sudden their 11-hour days turn into a 13-hour day. They want to be in areas that they want to live, close to work, close to hospitals, close to infrastructure, and that's what this style of housing does.
Yeah, it gives a lot of options. I really like this model personally as well because, one of the things I was wondering, for anyone listening who's like, hey, I have a bit of, money behind me, I could possibly, look at converting my home, or another property or getting into this type of investment. Can you walk us through the process of converting a standard property into, a house in multiple occupations, so HMO?
Yeah, absolutely. So firstly, there's different policies across the country. So in Western Australia, I'll give you what we can do in Western Australia, but there's different policies around the country. And if you want to be connected with anybody in Victoria or Brisbane, for instance, I've got contacts there. But for the purpose of this podcast today, we'll talk specifically about WA because this is what I'm an expert in. So if we like you say, we've converted probably about 85 to 90 established dwellings into HMOs since we've been doing this in 2014. And some people might say, oh, well, Neil, you're taking property off the market there, though, if you're converting them. Well, I am. I'm taking one property off the market, but then I'm housing 6 people in that one property. So technically, I'm taking one off, but I'm freeing 5 up.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
That makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. Now, the benefits of converting an established property is, in Western Australia and Australia in general, we've been building the biggest houses in the world on 246 square metres on average. So we've got plenty of space inside these established dwellings. And we can find these quite easily. We technically look for a 4x2 with a games room and a theatre room. And we convert the games room and the theatre room into bedrooms. So we go from a 4x2 to a 6x4. These can be done relatively quick. I think our fastest one we've probably done in like 2 weeks. On average,
Really?
we're seeing about 5 to 6 weeks on average at the minute with the trade shortage that we're seeing.
Jeez, that's still very quick, in my opinion.
Well, we've got the team, we've got the system. Like, everybody knows what they're doing. In the early days, we probably weren't as fast. Now it's just like, boom, we settle. The team are in there, demolition crew are in, plumbers are in, sparkies are in, carpenters in. It's just like systemizing away, so everybody knows they've got to be in and out on that day. The trickiest part for us at the minute is furniture, finding furniture and getting it installed in a time frame that we used to do them in like 2 or 3 days. Now it takes about 5 or 6, purely because it's just a shortage on furniture over in the West. We're trying to put some stats together actually to find out how many mattresses we bought and how many pillows we bought. So I reckon them numbers are up there. When we've done like 100 and close to 200 properties now, and you times that by 6 beds and 12 pillows and stuff like that, I reckon the stats would be quite interesting for some people.
Yeah, it would be. Because you fit them out with everything, don't you? So like a tenant was just literally walking into the property.
Correct. Yeah, it's like a short stay apartment, like a Quest apartment, or staying at a nice hotel.
Gosh, the only thing that's missing from this property is probably a regular cleaner.
We send cleaners through fortnightly.
Oh, you do? Oh, really?
Yeah.
I have to talk to my partner. I think I'm done.
The renovations are fast.
Yeah.
Like we can find something, and I can look at a property now within 5, probably 10 seconds and say this would work or not work. Because we've done that many of them. So we could find it, we can contract it, 28 days finance, 28 days settlement. My team would be in there within 10 days of settlement, depending on how long the build permit takes to be approved. From build permit to handover to the property management team, you're looking at 5 to 6 weeks. And we'd probably fill all 6 rooms within 2 to 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks at a push, depending on where it is.
So even the fact that you can have the rental done, like that's your average, turnaround 2-3 weeks to get tenants in, that's unbelievable. Because like you said, there's properties that sit on market, vacant possession, just waiting for someone to, please come and rent me. Just sitting there going stale, and you guys are doing it in 2 to 3 weeks. That's unreal.
Yeah. As the business kind of evolved, so as we did them first few properties and more people started saying, Neil, can you help us convert our established properties? People started reaching out to me and saying, Neil, can you help me find a property? I want to invest. Can you help me find something that we can convert? And can you manage it as well? So because we had the real estate agency set up, we set up a buyer's agency, and we started going out looking for specifically for properties that we can convert into HMOs.
Right.
We don't do anything else. We just do HMOs. So
it's not new construction, is it? So it's like you can't, if someone came to you with a block of land and said, can we construct it? Is that something they could do or not really?
Yeah. Well, that's what it evolved into. So people started saying, can you help me find it and convert it, which we did. And then as the market evolved again, and the business evolved and the market started to tighten, people started saying, Neil, I'd like to do a new build. Can you help me with a new build? So now, as of right now, we've got about 160 to 170 properties under construction. And they will all flow through in our property management business as well. So we set up the HMO Property Co. as a kind of consultation, project management arm to feed quality property into our property management business. So the property management business doesn't really market anywhere. It markets for tenants, but it doesn't market for clients, because the HMO Property Co. feeds new clients into that business on a monthly basis.
Right. Now that's that's awesome. I really love, it's actually something that, if people really wanted to take a punt like you did, they could start if their property's eligible with their principal place of residence if they didn't have another asset, if they had an option like you said, like you mentioned, moving in with parents for a little bit or in-laws to see if you can do it. That's really cool. And I think the process, like time frame, is just unreal, like unheard of in construction anyway.
Yeah, well, it's been pretty tight for the last 18 months have been pretty tight in the construction industry. I think, as things start to normalize again and we get more supplies in the West and more trades turning up, we could get them down again to 3 to 4 weeks, but no pressure on the team. They do a great job. I think 6 weeks is acceptable, right? Yeah,
that's fair enough. And look, I guess, talking about current economic climates, we've just had an announcement in the last week that RBA did the rate cut. And I really wanted, your perspective. I've been asking all these, different professionals I talk to in the real estate, property market. And, it's like specifically with co-living and what you're doing at HMO, what are the trends that you're observing in the property market and how do you see this having an impact for 2025?
Yes. Firstly, when you have a property that has a 10% gross yield, even with interest rates as high as they got, you're still cash flow positive. So all of my clients, including myself, yes, our cash flow dropped, but we weren't negative cash flow on any of our properties.
That's awesome.
So that's the benefit of having such a high yielding asset. When the interest rates drop back down, I mean, before they went up on our new build properties, we were getting access to a 3% interest only loan, and the cash flow on some of the new builds was like 50 to 55 grand a year net cash flow after all expenses.
Far out.
Yeah. So you only needed to at that time to be in a position where you could have an extra 40 hours a week to yourself. With interest rates where they are right now, look, the market's driven by two really strong emotions, which are fear and greed, right?
Mm-hmm.
When the interest rates are going up, everybody's fearful. They're sat on the sidelines. They want to wait until they know what's going to go on because everybody likes some level of certainty before they put their money into an asset.
Yeah, of course.
Smart. When the interest rate went up and plateaued out, the smart investors started moving again because they knew this was probably it. Even if it could only go up a little bit, but the only way from here is down. And now the interest rate or the RBA have dropped that rate. I believe that we've turned from fear to greed, and now people will actively get back into the market again. And I've been saying it for the last 6 months, Joe. I've been saying if you're going to move now, because when the interest rate comes down and people's perception changes, it's going to be a stampede to the market. And the Perth market's hot enough as it is right now.
Oh, you guys have had a killer 2024. That's for sure.
Yeah, we have. So will it continue on the trajectory we've seen in Perth for the last 2 years? Probably not, because it's been pretty strong. But if we get 50% of that, if we get 12 to 15% instead of 20 to 25% growth, I think the investors would still be very happy with that sort of return, wouldn't they?
Yeah, you'd have to be. But it's interesting that you said, through those peaks of the interest rates going up, that you and other investors involved in this co-living space actually remained cash flow positive, whereas I think the people that probably were impacted were the ones that all did traditional negative gearing, or probably having a different story to say. And I guess that's why they sold up their properties. But imagine they knew that this solution existed, what they could do different.
Correct. Well, I think there is a lot of people's perceived concept of what we do is different. I mean, at the very start of this, I said share housing, rooming houses. And I think that wording has probably got some sort of negative connotation attached to it. But I think when people actually see the finished product, I mean, every time we finish new houses, we bring investors through. We do like home opens and we invite investors that are on our database through to the property so they can check them out. And they walk in and they're like, wow, I had no idea it would look like this, feel like this, flow like this. I understand why people pay $350 to $400 a week to rent these rooms. Like, it's phenomenal. And then they take the courage to then move forward and invest themselves because they've seen it, they understand it a little bit better.
No, that's so true. And I was wondering, do you have anything online that, for our listeners who want to visualize this, do you have any walkthroughs that you've done, or is it on your website where they can see what these kind of homes look like as a finished product once you're done with them?
Yeah, we've done heaps of walkthroughs on, I was big on Facebook for many, many years. I still am. I think we all have our favorite platform, right? So
yeah.
In the early days, a lot of the stuff I was doing myself was on Facebook, and we still do a lot on Facebook under the HMO Property Code name. The team my marketing team, they love Instagram, so we're really ramping up the Instagram side of things now. But even on YouTube, there's plenty of walkthroughs on there that we've done.
Amazing.
And then if you want to check out livingrooms.com.au, that's our property management business, and you can see all the rooms that we have available or are available at some stage, and you can see this kind of finish that we finish these properties off to, and the standard.
That's really cool. No, yeah, because I just thought I always love to put a picture to things and say to people, if you're not sure what you're trying to visualize here, but service department's probably a good image to put in your head. But no, definitely we'll drop a link in this video again to more content that you can absorb from Neil's side and HMO and what those guys are doing over there, because I think it's really awesome. And, one thing I wanted to really I ask this of every guest, and it's what advice would you give to investors or our listeners who are looking to navigate the current, economic conditions, but also if they wanted to get into HMO, where should they start?
The first thing I always ask people, Jo, when they reach out to us is like, what are you trying to achieve? Because people see what we do and, people get excited, people are asking questions. But it all really depends on what are you trying to achieve first and foremost. Like, what's the goal that you're trying to achieve? Because real estate is just a vehicle to help you get from where you are to where you want to be. Myself and many of my clients have achieved certain levels of financial success from it. But that might not be for everybody. The financial side, it could be time over money that people want. Well, then again, HMO is one of these things. But first and foremost, knowing what you want and setting goals, and then taking small incremental steps every day towards them goals. That's the first tip I would say to people. Secondly would be get educated. Understand the asset class that you want to invest in. Don't just follow somebody's advice blindly. We put a lot of content out there to try and educate our audience to understand who we are, what we've done and why we do it, and how it can help them as well. And then thirdly, it would be take action. So set goals, educate yourself, take action. They're the three big things. That's what I did back in 2014, and that's got me in the position that I'm in now.
No, that's awesome and good advice. It's solid, because it's just like set a goal, achieve it. If you don't achieve it, keep going, pivot, do what you have to do, but you'll get there. But
simple, but not easy.
Yes, exactly. It's like simple in theory, not always easy to do. A challenge every day, but if you're up for it and you really want to achieve it, you will do it.
100%.
And people do it all the time. So, and one thing, I've been loving having you on the podcast, and you had me actually on your podcast last week. We did our recording and our session, which was a lot of fun. And, I wanted to give you an opportunity to, tell our audience because you do a HMO property show. So this is just like a small snippet and an episode into what you do, but you have a whole thing on it. So, what motivated you to start your podcast? Is that part of that education arm of the business?
So I would say one of my best traits, and people around me have said this, is I'm very coachable. And I reached out to, I used to listen to a guy in the UK called Rob Moore, who he went under the banner, the Disruptive Entrepreneur. I've never met Rob, never paid for any of his content, but I used to listen to all of his podcasts. And one of the podcasts was about building your personal brand. And a good way to do that was to start a podcast. So my first podcast was called the Perth Entrepreneurs Podcast, where I used to interview different entrepreneurs from Perth to find out how they've achieved what they've achieved. And that was good. We did 98 episodes, I think. And then kind of slapped me in the face as the business was growing. I was like, why am I doing a business podcast when I've got a real estate investing business? So I literally put the brakes on episode 98, and I was like, right, I'm going to start the HMO property show to educate, entertain, motivate, and inspire people. And
I love it.
We just put content out there constantly in that format to educate, entertain, motivate, and inspire. Not all about HMOs. It's helping people like yourself and other people that are in the space get access to my audience, but also for them to understand what's going on out there. Like, one of my biggest things is education and knowing what's happening and who to speak to when you need help. So my idea is bringing people on that are doing good things so that the audience can hear them. And then, if they do work together, that's fantastic. But more importantly, I just want everybody to understand what's going on out there, because there's so many different ways you can achieve your goals. There's so many different ways you can run a business. There's so many different ways you can build a property portfolio. And there's no one size fits all for everybody. So we just bring a variety of guests and a variety of topics. Some of them aren't even real estate related. Last week I had my coach on talking to me about coaching me live about the issues that I have with my kids and trying to run a business. A little bit different, but there you go.
Love it. No, it's a bit of variety because I really enjoyed the episode and the way you interviewed and the questions you asked. So hopefully I've done you justice today. I hope anyway, but it was really good. So I think I'll drop in the information for, the podcast in this episode so everyone can access it directly in Spotify. Maybe you can listen to this episode and then you're hungry for it. So you just jump straight into HMO. Go from there.
Thank you, Jo.
Of course. And to wrap up, I just want to know, what are your goals for HMO property in the coming years? You've mentioned your big milestone of 10,000 and continually innovating. Is there anything in particular, for like expanding in the property investment sector? Is there anything that you're planning that you want to give us a sneak peek to?
Yes, we are planning on expanding into the Melbourne market soon. We've built a pretty big business now. I'm very process driven. I love everything to be documented and scheduled correctly. So for us to set up over there will be relatively straightforward. I'm not going to say there'll be no challenges. There'll definitely be challenges, but we could typically pick up our business and drop it over there and it would work really well. So Melbourne's next on the radar. Who knows after that? But my business partner, he was born in America, grew up in Melbourne, and he's a Collingwood fan, so he's been itching to get over there, try to see, hopefully try and tie him with a grand final one year as well. That'd be cool.
We're looking good this year. I'm a Collingwood supporter. We're looking very good. But I'm really looking forward to that. I'm so glad to hear that Melbourne's your next one on the hit list. I think there's a lot of people, like I said, I know listeners-wise, we always do a call out for what episodes and who do you want to hear from. And, co-living has come up a few times in our request box. And for me, the fact that you're saying you're going to come to Melbourne, I think we're going to have a lot of people that are going to start the conversation early with you and say, how soon, how long do I have to wait? What do I have to do between now and then?
Lovely. Appreciate it, Jo.
Awesome.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Of course, thank you, Neil, for sharing your expertise and your insights with us today. And for our listeners eager to learn more or explore investment opportunities with the HMO Property Co., you can visit their website, so the hmopropertyco.com.au, not .au. And just don't forget to check out the HMO Property Show, so for in-depth discussions on property investing and co-living models. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who might find it valuable. And until next time, happy investing. Thanks once again, Neil, for being here.
Thank you, Jo.
That's a wrap for this episode of the No BS Real Estate Podcast, powered by Abodey AI. If you found this conversation helpful, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need it. If you're looking for more guidance on your home buying journey, you can visit www.abodey.com.au for expert advice, property insights, and the tools you need to find the right home with confidence. If you're already on your journey, you can also download our app. Just search Abodey AI on the App Store or Google Play. Have any questions or want to connect, you can follow us on Instagram at abodey.com.au or send us a message. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.